I thought I'd found the man who'd be a father to my baby, until he mocked me in front of his entire family and treated me like a burden. Now, he only gets to see his child from a distance. I knew something was wrong the second he didn't look at me. I had just told him I was pregnant. Literally stood in our tiny kitchen holding the test in both hands, my heart racing, my mouth dry. And Joran didn't even look up from the sink. He just said, "Oh." Then he turned back to washing dishes like I'd told him I bought the wrong kind of cereal. We had been together for almost 2 years. I'm 33, he's 38. We weren't exactly kids playing house. We'd talked about a future, about maybe starting a family someday, though always in that vague, safe way people do when they're still testing the ground beneath them. But I was starting to feel the clock tick. I'd brought it up more seriously last winter. He didn't shut it down. In fact, he said, "If it happens, it happens. I'm not scared of being a dad." I guess he lied. This pregnancy wasn't planned. We had just come back from a weekend in Colorado, a spontaneous road trip full of hiking, hotel coffee, and whatever half-drunk intimacy two people create when they're pretending everything's simple. A few weeks later, my period didn't show up. I took a test, then another, then a third, sitting on the bathroom floor with my knees pulled to my chest, trying to keep my breathing even. Positive. All of them. I was scared, but underneath that fear was something warmer. I thought he'd hold me, kiss my forehead, say something, anything, that would make me feel like I wasn't alone in this. Instead, I got, "Oh," and the sound of water running over plates. I told myself he was shocked. I tried again. "I mean, this is big. You okay?" He shrugged. Shrugged, like I just told him someone at work got fired. I laughed nervously and said, "You're just processing, right?" He said, "I guess. I just didn't expect this right now." And I don't know why, but I said, "Neither did I, but it's happening." He didn't answer. He turned off the water, dried his hands, and walked into the bedroom without a word. I sat down on the kitchen floor and cried. Over the next few days, I gave him space. He didn't ask me how I was feeling. He didn't bring it up. At all. I started taking prenatal vitamins. I booked a doctor's appointment. I texted him the date, and he replied, "Can't. I've got a client call." That was it. It felt like I was living with a ghost. He was there, technically. He still made his coffee every morning, still watched soccer on the weekends, but he didn't ask about the baby, never touched my belly, never once said the word dad out loud. One night, I sat him down. I didn't even know how to start. I said, "I just need to know where you're at with this. Do you still want this? Do you want to be involved at all?" He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in weeks, and said, "I don't know what you want me to say." And then he walked out of the room and started playing Call of Duty with his headset on, like I just asked if he wanted pizza for dinner. I sat on the couch holding my breath until I realized I was holding it. I started doubting myself. Maybe I was being dramatic. Maybe this was just his way of coping. My best friend Rowan told me some men take longer to bond with the baby. My mom said, "He'll come around when he sees the ultrasound." But then came the dinner. His sister Marley invited us over. She's one of those overly curated, wine-glass-clinking suburban hostesses who posts her salad bowls like they're art. Her husband's dull, the kids are loud but manageable, and their mother, Joran's mom, was visiting from out of state. I dressed up, curled my hair, wore the soft green dress that now barely zipped over my tiny bump. I looked in the mirror and told myself, maybe tonight will feel normal. I was so stupid. The moment Marley opened the door, she smiled and said, "Oh wow, so you're actually pregnant. Thought that was just one of those rumors." I laughed awkwardly. Joran didn't say a word. We sat down for dinner. Sparkling water was poured. I declined the wine. Someone made a joke about how next year's family trip might need a babysitter. Marley said, "Or maybe not, depending on how this all plays out." She looked directly at Joran and raised her eyebrows. He smirked. Smirked. I felt something cold settle into my stomach, like dread or recognition. I placed both hands on my lap to stop them from shaking. Later, the topic of baby names came up. I mentioned, just casually, that I liked the name Isla. Marley laughed and said, "Isla. Sounds like someone who charges by the hour." Then she sipped her wine and added, "Just saying." Again, Joran said nothing. Not a glance in my direction. Not even a hey, not cool. I turned to him. He avoided my eyes, and then he said it. "We don't even know if it's mine. DNA tests exist for a reason." I froze. The room went dead silent. Even the kids stopped talking. Marley covered her mouth like she was hiding a smile. Their mother looked down at her plate like she'd just seen something disgusting on it. I couldn't breathe. My ears were ringing. I stood up slowly, pushed my chair back, and said, louder than I meant to, "You're right. This baby doesn't need a father like you." No one moved. No one said my name. I walked out the front door without grabbing my coat. It was snowing. And the worst part? The absolute worst part? He didn't follow me. When I stepped out of that house into the freezing air with nothing but my thin green dress and a spine made of glass, I didn't feel strong. I felt broken, shattered into pieces that I wasn't sure I could gather again. The snow was light but relentless, catching in my hair, clinging to my sleeves, like even the sky was trying to pull me down. I sat in my car for 20 minutes. No one came after me. Not Joran, not Marley, not even his mother. I watched the porch light glow warmly through the frost-covered windshield while I sat shaking behind the wheel, too humiliated to cry, too stunned to move. I drove back to our apartment on autopilot. The lights were off. He hadn't beaten me home. I locked the door, sat on the couch, and just stared at nothing. That night, something in me snapped. Not loudly, not like glass shattering. It was quieter, like a rope pulled too tight that finally gave way. I realized then, I didn't have a partner. I had a witness, and not even a good one. By morning, I had packed a single duffel bag with the essentials. Some clothes, my prenatal vitamins, my insurance paperwork, and my worn-out journal. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe him anything. Rowan didn't ask questions when I showed up at her place with puffy eyes and cracked lips. She just opened the door wider and said, "I'll make tea." She cleared a spot in her guest room, really just a storage room with a mattress on the floor and a lamp with a broken switch. But to me, it felt like sanctuary. That first week was rough. I slept in spurts, cried in bursts. My body was growing heavier, slower. But somehow it was still more peaceful than the silent war zone I had just left. Then the gifts started. At first, I thought maybe Rowan's mom or someone from her church had dropped something off. But when I stepped outside to grab groceries one morning, there was a small brown box sitting neatly on the hood of Rowan's car. No note, just a cheap-looking onesie with a rainbow, and the words, "Daddy's Little Sunshine," printed on the front. I recognized the handwriting on the shipping label. Joran used to write his grocery lists in all caps, with weird, sharp R's. I stood in the parking lot holding that damn onesie like it was a piece of evidence. The next day, there was a folded piece of paper taped to the door. It just said, "I miss you. Please let's talk." No signature, but I didn't need one. The handwriting screamed of desperation masked as sincerity. Then came the big box, a convertible crib, the kind that turns into a toddler bed. Brand new, still sealed. I Googled the model number out of morbid curiosity. It cost over $600. $600 for something he never once asked me about. Never consulted. Never even mentioned wanting to help with. Rowan helped me drag it inside. She raised an eyebrow but didn't press. I told her I didn't want to talk about it. What I really meant was, if I talk about it, I might scream. And then he showed up in person. I had just finished a video call with my insurance rep about how to register my child without listing a father. Spoiler, it's complicated, cold, and humiliating. I walked down to throw out some trash, and there he was, leaning awkwardly by the mailboxes like a damn extra in a rom-com. He was holding a paper bag with a stuffed bear's head sticking out. When he saw me, he smiled like we were exes running into each other at Trader Joe's. "I just wanted to give you this," he said. "And maybe talk, if you're not too busy." I stared at him for a solid 5 seconds. Then I said, "Leave." He looked taken aback. "Rellyn, please, just 5 minutes." "No." He shifted uncomfortably, then muttered, "You're being kind of dramatic. I'm trying here." That's when I snapped. I walked up, yanked the paper bag out of his hand, and dropped it into the dumpster next to us. "You don't get to rewrite what happened," I said, my voice shaking. "You don't get to show up with teddy bears and cribs and pretend this is some romantic comedy with a happy ending. You humiliated me in front of your entire family. You made a joke about cheating, about this baby not being yours. And then you sat there while they laughed." He looked stunned. "I didn't mean it like that. I was nervous. It was just a bad night. Everyone was drinking." "It was a Tuesday," I snapped. "Your sister served lemonade and La Croix. Your mom drove home. No one was drunk. They were just cruel. And you let them be." He looked like he wanted to shrink into himself. "I told my mom we were figuring things out," he said. "She wants to come visit after the baby's born. I just thought maybe we could—" I laughed. Actually laughed. "You told her we're back together?" He nodded, like it made perfect sense. Before I could even process what I was doing, I slapped him. Not hard, not in rage. It was like my hand acted on behalf of my dignity before I could stop it. He didn't say a word. I turned and walked away. Later that night, Rowan came into my room holding her phone. "You need to see this," she said. It was a screenshot from Joran's sister, Marley. She had posted a photo of the exact crib he sent me, still in the box, in her foyer. The caption read, "So proud of my brother for stepping up. Can't wait to meet my niece." Niece? Not maybe niece, not future step, not if this works out. They were already building the narrative. The heroic father, the sweet redemption arc, the golden boy who made a mistake but came through in the end. It was never about the baby. It was never about me. It was about them, about keeping up the image, about managing the optics, about pretending like Joran had turned it all around just in time for the curtain call. I stared at the photo for a long time, and then I said, "Get the car keys." Rowan looked up. "Where are we going?" "We're returning the lie." She didn't ask questions. I didn't return the crib quietly. Rowan and I strapped that giant box into the back of her car using bungee cords and 2 scarves because we couldn't find anything else strong enough. We drove in silence across town to Joran's mother's house. She lived in this pristine beige 2-story with flower beds that looked too perfect to be real. I didn't call. I didn't text. I knocked on the door like I was delivering a subpoena. She opened it, gave me a polite, fake smile, and said, "Oh, hi, Rellin. You look well." I said, "Is Joran here?" She blinked. "No, he's at work." "Good." I walked right past her, dragging the crib box through the doorway like a storm cloud. She stepped back, flustered, but didn't stop me. "Wait, what is this?" "Just returning the lie he sent me," I said flatly. She furrowed her brow. "What are you talking about?" I turned to her, locked eyes, and said, "Your son told you we're working things out." "That's a lie. We're not. We never will be. And if you, or anyone in your family, shows up at the hospital when I give birth, I swear I'll file a restraining order so fast your head will spin." She took a step back, trying to mask the look of panic. Then she said the thing that nearly made me laugh from the pure absurdity of it. "You're making this harder than it has to be." I laughed. I actually laughed out loud, right there in her spotless entryway. Because that's the line, right? Women like me, who don't forgive quietly, who don't accept mistreatment with grace, we're always making it harder. Never mind what her son said to me. Never mind what he didn't say when his sister called me a joke. Never mind the months of silence, the months of me carrying our child alone. The problem is always my reaction. I walked out, slammed the door, and felt something heavy lift off my chest. For a few days, things were quiet again. I got back to doctor appointments, prenatal classes online, making lists of baby names I actually liked, without worrying about whether they sounded too stripper for Marley's taste. Rowan bought me a pregnancy pillow that basically changed my life. My world was small but safe. No more surprises. Or so I thought. One night, I got a message request on Instagram. The name wasn't familiar, but the profile photo was a woman around my age. No bio, no obvious mutuals. Just one message. "Hey, I know this is weird, but I think we need to talk. It's about Joran." I froze. At first, I almost blocked her. I thought she might be one of Marley's friends trying to stir something up. But something in my gut told me not to. I replied, "Who are you?" A minute passed. Then she said, "My name is Jessa. I used to date Joran, and there's something I think you deserve to know, especially before your baby is born." It felt like the air left the room. We messaged back and forth for a while before I asked her if she'd be willing to call. She said yes. I took the call in Rowan's room while she was out for groceries. I had no idea what was coming. Nothing could have prepared me for it. Jessa had dated Joran about 6 years ago. It wasn't serious, only a few months. But she got pregnant. Accidentally. When she told him, he completely unraveled. Not in a sad or scared way. In a rage way. He begged her not to keep it. Said it would ruin his life. Accused her of trying to trap him. Called her selfish. Said she wanted a baby so she'd never be alone. She terminated the pregnancy. But the part that made my skin crawl was this. According to Jessa, he never really got over it. Not because he mourned the loss. Number because he felt like she took away his control. Like her choice to end the pregnancy without his final approval was an unforgivable betrayal. He started referring to parenthood as a power play. Would make jokes, dark, bitter ones, about women weaponizing babies or locking men down. I sat there, phone on speaker, staring at the wall. Because it all made sense. Every moment he went silent when I brought up the baby. Every shrug, every dead stare at the ultrasound photo. Every fake supportive phrase that felt more like delay tactics than encouragement. It wasn't shock. It wasn't anxiety. It was resentment. He didn't see this child as a miracle. He saw it as a trap he didn't escape in time. And the cruelest part? He never told me any of this. He let me believe it was me. That I was too emotional, too impatient, too sensitive. He let me carry that guilt alone. I thanked Jessa for telling me. She apologized. For him, for the whole situation, for not saying something sooner. I told her she didn't owe me that. She had already paid her price. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there holding my stomach, whispering to the baby, "You're not a mistake. You're not a punishment. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." A few days later, I posted a photo. Not a cute bump shot. Not a filtered maternity moment. Just me on the floor in sweatpants, messy hair, holding my growing belly. The caption was simple. He said she was a trap. But she's the only thing I've never doubted. Rowan reposted it. So did my cousin. And I knew someone would send it to Marley. That woman couldn't go 2 hours without screenshotting people's stories and gossiping in group chats. It didn't take long. Less than an hour later, I got a message from Joran. He said, "That post was unfair. You're alienating my daughter from me." His daughter. I actually laughed. I replied, "You alienated yourself the second you joked about DNA tests in front of your entire family. What exactly are you trying to come back to? The baby you never wanted? Or the image you're trying to fix?" He left me on red. But the real twist didn't come from him. It came 2 days later in the form of a thin white envelope with no return address. Inside was a handwritten letter. It wasn't from Joran. It was from his mother. And what she wrote inside made my hands shake. The letter from his mother was exactly what I expected, and somehow still worse. It started with, "I hope this letter finds you well." Like she wasn't writing to the woman her son humiliated. Like she wasn't one of the many people who sat in that dinner, silent while I was picked apart like a side dish they didn't order. It went on for 2 pages, all in neat cursive. She said she was concerned about the long-term emotional impact of denying a child access to her father. That she understood things had been tense, but that Joran was trying. Trying? He tried to erase me. He tried to spin a version of events where he was the misunderstood father-to-be, and I was the bitter ex making it hard. He wasn't trying to be a father. He was trying to save face. She wrote, "Children need both parents, Relin. I hope you'll reflect on that before making any permanent decisions." I folded the letter slowly and slid it into a folder I'd started keeping. A folder I labeled for the future. Inside were screenshots, receipts, appointment records, and now this. Her attempt to guilt me into letting the wolves back in the door. Because one day, my daughter will ask questions, and when she does, I'll give her facts, not fairy tales. But something in me snapped again that day. Not in sadness this time. It was sharper, focused. I realized they weren't going to stop. Not with words, not with silence, not with letters that reeked of sugar and manipulation. So I decided to return the favor. I posted another photo. This time, it was just a corner of the crib, the one I'd dragged back to his mother's house, now sitting outside on the curb with a bright orange sticker on it that said, "Free" in thick black marker. The caption read, "Turns out I don't need things bought with guilt. I need space and peace." I didn't tag anyone. I didn't have to. Marley saw it within an hour. She always saw everything. How do I know? Because 2 days later, I was in the baby aisle at Target, picking up more burp cloths when I saw her. Marley. In her oversized sunglasses and fake designer tote, pretending not to see me as she reached for a bottle of baby lotion. I called out, "Marley." She flinched, turned, gave me a tight smile. "Oh, hey." I didn't blink. "How's the PR campaign going?" She gave a fake laugh. "You've always had such a sharp tongue." I said, "You've always had such a comfortable seat in other people's pain." She bristled, then said the line I was waiting for. "You know Joran's hurting, right? He feels like you're punishing him." I stared at her for a long second. He is being punished, with the truth. And if that hurts, maybe he should have spoken up at dinner, or not joked about DNA tests, or, I don't know, acted like a human being. She said, "You don't have to be cruel." I leaned in just enough. Neither did he. Then I turned and walked away, but it didn't stop there. 2 nights later, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. It was short. Just Joran's voice saying, "We need to talk. You're making this ugly, and I'm not going to let you destroy my relationship with my daughter before it even starts." I didn't respond, but I saved the audio file for the folder. The next morning, Rowan and I were having breakfast when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, then handed it to me. It was a DM from someone named at that girl Han. The message just said, "Is your friend still pregnant with Joran's baby?" Because this might be something she wants to see. Attached was a screenshot. A photo of Joran, standing in someone's backyard, arms around a woman I'd never seen before. She was visibly pregnant. Not as far along as I had been when I walked out of that dinner, but definitely pregnant. My ears started ringing. The caption on the photo? "Can't wait to start this new chapter with you. You're going to be such an amazing dad." The post was from 2 months ago. 2 months. While he was texting me. While he was leaving onesies on my car. While he was showing up at my apartment with teddy bears and sad eyes. While his sister was posting about his redemption arc. While his mother was writing me letters begging me to give him a chance to be a father. He already had another baby on the way. Another woman. Another pregnancy. Another story he'd curated to make himself look like the man he never dared to be. I felt sick. I felt violated. I felt free. Because now I knew that none of this was about my daughter. It was about optics, about image, about making sure he wasn't the villain in the story he wrote in his head. So I stopped being afraid of being too much. I posted one final update to my story. A photo of my daughter's nursery. Clean, soft, sunlight streaming in. On the crib rail hung a little onesie. Not from Joran. One I bought myself. It said, "Raised by love, not permission." The caption? "You told people I shut you out. But here's the truth. I held the door open until you spit on the welcome mat. She doesn't need a dad who treats fatherhood like a costume. She has me. That's enough." I didn't name him, but I didn't have to. And just when I thought nothing could shock me anymore, I got a message from a mutual friend. She said, "Hey, just so you know, that other woman, the one pregnant in the picture, she thinks she's the only one. He told her you made the whole thing up. He told her I made it up. The pregnancy, the baby, the crib, the dinner, all of it." I stared at the message. Then I smiled. Because the only thing worse than being forgotten is being remembered incorrectly. And I was done letting him control the narrative. I didn't plan to ever see him again. After everything, the lies, the staged gifts, the alternate version of reality he fed his family and that poor girl, I thought he'd finally disappear. I thought silence would be the end of it. But people like Joran don't vanish. They wait. They circle back when they think enough time has passed for you to forget. 6 years. That's how long it took. 6 years of birthdays, fevers, ballet recitals, bedtime stories, and sticky-fingered hugs. 6 years of raising my daughter, my Noli, without a trace of him. She grew up smart, stubborn, and full of fire. She looked like me, but had her own way of tilting her head when she asked questions, like she was already dissecting the world for truth. She knew she didn't have a dad in the picture, but she never asked much. I think she saw how full our lives were and figured there wasn't a gap. And then a letter came. No return address. Just my name, written in handwriting I hadn't seen since the last time I watched it scrawl itself across a receipt with the arrogance of someone who thought they'd always be welcome. I almost threw it out. But curiosity won. Inside, the letter was surprisingly short. He said he'd been in therapy, that he'd made mistakes, that he thought about Noli every day. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He asked for 10 minutes, just to see her, from a distance. He said, "Even if she never knows who I am, I'd like to know who she is." For a moment, I felt nothing. Then I felt rage. Then, something else. Not sadness, not pity, just cold understanding. This wasn't about love. This was about guilt, about fixing his conscience, about inserting himself into a story he was never brave enough to be part of. But still, I agreed. I texted from a number I hadn't used in years. Saturday, 3 p.m., Lakeside Park, bench under the willow tree. You sit, you don't approach, you don't speak to her. 10 minutes, that's all. He replied within an hour. "I'll be there. Thank you, I didn't answer." That Saturday, I told Noli we were going to the park. She grabbed her purple hoodie, slipped on her light-up sneakers, and asked if we could get ice cream after. Her voice still had that sweet sing-song quality only 6-year-olds can pull off. When we got there, the park was quiet. The willow tree stood at the edge of the lake, its branches swaying like it knew it was about to witness something heavy. He was already there, sitting with his hands clasped, staring at the gravel path like it might give him a script. He looked older, thinner, more contained. He didn't see us right away. Noli ran ahead, arms outstretched, pretending she was flying. When he did look up, I saw it hit him. His face broke. Not with tears, but with realization. Like the weight of 6 years finally dropped on his chest and he couldn't breathe under it. I didn't say a word. I walked behind Noli, who had stopped to watch a ladybug crawl up her sleeve. She showed it to me with that joy only kids can find in small crawling things. I nodded, smiled, and bent down beside her. He stayed on the bench. When she ran off toward the swings, I turned to him, walked slowly over but kept distance. He stood up like he wanted to say something. I shook my head. 10 minutes? I reminded him quietly. You said you just wanted to see her. Now you have. He opened his mouth, but I held up a hand. You don't get to rewrite history, Joran. You don't get to pretend the past didn't happen. You made your choice. You watched me walk out that night without saying my name. You let your sister mock me. You denied your own child in front of a table full of people. And when you finally showed up, it wasn't for her. It was for you. For your image, your story. He stood frozen. She's not your daughter. She never was. You were a sperm donor with a conscience problem. I turned back toward Noli, who was now laughing at a pigeon trying to hop down a slide. When I walked past him, she ran up to me with a leaf she found shaped like a heart. Can I keep it? She asked. I smiled. Of course. As we walked away, she looked back at the man on the bench and gave him a little wave. Just polite, like she might wave at any stranger. I turned once more, looked Joran in the eye, and said, You've seen her. That's more than you earned. Don't contact us again. He didn't follow. He didn't speak. He just watched her walk away, leaf in hand, sunlight catching in her curls. And I knew that image would haunt him forever. That was my justice. He missed everything. He missed the first laugh, the first steps, the nights she wouldn't sleep without a lullaby, the day she got stung by a bee and cried like her world ended, until I kissed it better, the morning she wrote MOM in crayon on the wall and said, I spelled love. He missed all of it. And now, all he gets is the silence he created. Because I may not have a perfect life, but I have a daughter who knows her worth, a home filled with honesty, and a story I don't need to lie about. And him? He gets to sit with the truth he ran from. And that's the thing about walking away. Some doors never open again. Sometimes justice doesn't come in courtrooms or apologies. It comes from living a life where the person who broke you no longer has a place. If you've ever gone through something like this, I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below and share what you've overcome. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more real, powerful, emotional stories just like this one.